I'm not a chef by any stretch of the imagination whatsoever, but I have cooked in restaurants and I cook a lot for myself. I used to cook for my family all the time, and I used to do family dinners with my entire family and guests of 30 people or more all the time. The recipe that I'm going to share with you today is something that I do on a Weber charcoal grill, but you can easily do on a gas grill at home. Super simple. It's not, I won't call it the greatest recipe ever, but it's one of my favorite recipes, and hopefully it'll be one of yours when you put your little twist on it as well. I'm Sean in Alaska. Let's grill up a ribeye steak dinner. So you guys have seen me cook food quite a bit, but I've never actually gone through the whole process with you. So that's what this video is. This is going to be on how to grill a perfect dinner on the Weber charcoal grill. Tonight we're going to do ribeye steaks. They were $7.99 a pound for boneless ribeyes. Now, I can't find a bone in that steak. Got a heck of a deal on that one. In this cup is kosher salt, and I'm going to put a little bit more on this, but you want to liberally coat both sides of the steak with kosher salt. And I mean, you want to see the kosher salt on the steak. Then I'm going to set it on this little tray right here so that it gets good air circulation all the way around it. We're going to want to rest that for at least 30 minutes. Better to do it for an hour or two. Let it come up to room temperature and you'll have a much juicier steak when you're finished. Along with that, we're going to do corn on the cob. I'm going to show you how I make sauteed mushrooms, and we're going to do some Parmesan red potatoes. My trusty knife. I like to do this with red potatoes or Yukon Golds or white potatoes. I stay away from russets on this because you want a potato that's a little bit on the softer side. So all you need to do for the potatoes that we're going to make sure you got a sharp knife, obviously. So we're going to cut them all about that thick. Okay, so these are basically oblong coins when we're done. How do you like my custom cutting board? Figure one potato per person. So if you're cooking potatoes for a whole bunch of people, you might want to consider a second dish as well so that you don't have to cook so many. I mean, if you've got 6 people eating and you're trying to do 6 potatoes worth of these potatoes on the grill, you got to get pretty creative. If you got a gas grill, it's a lot easier. And try and get them all uniform in size, because if they're all uniform thickness, they will all cook relatively the same time. You can never tell today. So that's what we're looking for, right there. And that's basically, get out of there, how they're going to sit in the foil pouch that we're going to put together for them. A little windy out here, but it's never a bad day to grill. Okay, so the potatoes are going to be cooked in foil. Over here, I have butter. I'm one of those people who never refrigerates his butter once he pulls the cube out. So butter by itself will burn, which is why you always see me do butter and, in this jar, olive oil, because butter and olive oil together will not burn. Put my finger over it because I just want to drizzle some olive oil on this. And cooking them on the foil, they are going to steam inside the package. So that's actually going to do most of the cooking for it, not the oil and the butter. And I've got some chopped garlic here. At this point you could do whatever you want flavor-wise to make them your own family favorite. I'm a huge fan of rosemary with my potatoes. You always see me pull them out and then I'll kind of smash them together here to break them up. Sprinkle some rosemary on top of there. Let's do a little pinch of kosher salt to bring out the flavor. And then pick up another one of these in the store because mine's at the campsite. Coarse ground black pepper. I don't like fine ground black pepper. Not a fan of it. And do I have everything else in there? No. Forgot my secret special ingredient that I actually have this time. Parmesan and Romano blend. I wouldn't do this with you know, like a jack or pepper jack or cheddar, because I think they're too soft, and I think the heat would end up charring the cheese, where it doesn't have that issue with the harder Italian cheeses. Let me just sprinkle a nice layer across the top there. And then we would just fold this up. That is ready for the grill. Got the mushrooms cut up. These we're going to actually do in a cast iron skillet. You can see how much butter I have in there. I'm going to put more butter in there. We might put more butter in there on top of it. To give you an idea of how I slice these, right there, relatively, I don't know, maybe 1/4 of an inch thick. If you have really, really small mushrooms, this is a great example. I could have, like, if I could get a whole bunch of these, I would cook them all like that whole. But slice them all up. We're going to do a little butter in our pan over here. And out comes the garlic again. There's a million variations on what you can do. I'm going to put about that much garlic in the pan. A million variations of what you can do with sauteed mushrooms. And this is my take on it. And it comes from a couple of different restaurants that I worked at growing up as a kid. The cell phone camera up so you can see what I got going on in the tray here. So just a nice layer of butter and your chopped up garlic on there. And you can use fresh garlic by all means, but I had a jar of this chopped garlic ahead. And then I'll come over here with the camera to get a little bit better picture. So what we're out to do here is we're out to get the garlic and the butter to slowly simmer together. I won't worry about adding any salt or anything to it yet because the butter that I use is salted butter. And I want to brown up the garlic just a little bit, but I do not want to caramelize the garlic. Okay, we're simmering this up. Remember, when you're using a cast iron skillet on a grill, that the handle is in fact going to get pretty warm on you. And it looks like a ton of mushrooms, and this would serve, this is one little basket of mushrooms. This would probably serve normally 2 people, but they're going to cook down quite a bit. And the mushrooms will suck up all of that buttery, ooey goodness. But we're not done. We're going to add some more fat to that because I said butter will burn. So let's pop some olive oil in there as well. And now we're going to cook these until they begin to brown up. And again, why am I cooking these so early? Because they do take a little bit more time, and I'm going to move them over to the cold zone, like I said, of the grill, and we'll let them finish up in there. This is going to have an incredible amount of flavor when you're done because we still have one ingredient left to add. We're not going to add that yet, though. On the front part right here, we have the potatoes. Got the mushrooms going, and I've got the corn. Figured you didn't need to see that. Just shuck the corn, hit some butter in there. I throw a little bit of black pepper on it, and then wrap it up in foil. So the corn and the potatoes are going to take the longest to cook. I already know that. We're going to kind of move the mushrooms way back to the side, and then we're going to throw the steak on. We have one more ingredient to add to the mushrooms. We're going to do that in a little bit. I'm going to put the lid on this now and let everything start to cook. Let's see where we're at here. I know because I peeked before I turned the camera back on. And it is a unwritten rule of barbecuing that you must have a libation while you are at the grill. But it's a libation of your choice. Not necessarily does it have to be beer. It can be whatever you want. For me, it's an ice cold, in this case, 2 timing trout from Kenai River Brewing Company. Usually I will do the mushrooms separately on the stove top, but I wanted to do everything on the grill here to show you that, yes, in fact, not a problem at all to do everything on here. I have got potatoes right here. Turn that around. I have got corn right here. Ooh, that is a hot spot for corn, isn't it? And we've got our mushrooms right here. Now, the final ingredient that I was talking about before, and for my mushrooms, it is not optional, is this right here, okay? Very dry sherry. I don't care what the brand name is, but you want very dry sherry. And it's going to impart a flavor on these that is just out of this world when it's done. You be a little generous with it. Don't use the cooking sherry that you find in a grocery store on the grocery aisles. Go to the liquor store and buy an actual bottle of sherry and use it to cook with. For those of you that are not into alcohol at all, understand that alcohol evaporates at about 175 or 170 degrees Fahrenheit. So when we're done cooking, the only thing you will have left in here will be the flavor of that sherry. There will be no alcohol content on this sherry or on these mushrooms whatsoever. All the alcohol cooks out. And now we're going to let those mushrooms act like the sponges that they are and soak up all of that yummy, yummy goodness. But we're going to do it back over here so that I'm not over direct heat. And as soon as this stuff is cooked a little bit more, we are going to throw the steak on. Let's see where we're at. Hopefully the wind isn't wiping out the speakers on there. Oh, that's cooking down rather nicely. Charcoal's still good and hot. If you have gloves, use them. Generally, it's got to be pretty hot for me to burn my hands, so too many years pulling pans out of an oven as a baker. We don't want that. I've said it a million times, but my daughters always cook with me. They got me this cup years ago. Both of them are parents now. This is my oldest, Brienne, and this is my youngest, Ashley. Ashley just had a baby, Rosalie, and Brienne has a son, and his name is Dash. Let's talk about our main course for tonight's dinner. Steak. Gotta love steak. And of all the steaks in the steak world, ribeye is probably my favorite one. So here's what I'm looking for when I'm buying a ribeye steak. I want fat. Okay, I want to see fat in that steak because fat is flavor. Marbling, which are the small little white lines throughout the steak, I want to see those as well because marbling means tenderness in a ribeye steak. This is the cap, and this is going to be the most flavorful piece of meat on this entire steak. It's going to be yummy, yummy good. This has been sitting outside in the open air now for about an hour. We're almost to the point where we can pop it on the grill. I just want to make sure that I've got everything else just about ready. The steak will go on, the steak will come off and rest before we eat it, and then I'll pull everything else off of the grill. But I wanted to show you what I'm looking for in a steak. I mean, this is gorgeous, just gorgeous. This fat, oh, it's going to be so yummy. All right, let's see where we're at with the rest of the meal. So the moisture that was in that pan is just about all gone. Let's see where we're at here. Oh, those are yummy. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Don't really need anything else flavor-wise except splash another little dot of sherry on there. Potatoes, I don't know where we're at. Ooey and gooey. Steaming. Pretty tender. So we're pretty darn close on those. I Got to imagine that the corn is also right about there. So let's talk about grilling a steak. Again, I told you that we have a couple of hot zones on this grill. Right here. Cooler, coldest zone's right over here. So my long simmer's going to go right over there. And I am just going to brush this off real quick here. And now, grill marks. How do you get them on a steak? Well, if we start right here and put the steak down and we leave it there for a minute or so, I will show you how we do that. Now the lid's been back on this for about 2 minutes or so. You pick your steak up, you turn it a quarter of a turn, and you move it to the next hot zone right over there. All right. These grates now have cooled down too much to give you any grill marks at all, so you need to go to the next hot section. So if you're cooking multiple steaks, you need to have multiple hot sections to move the steaks along. We'll see what they look like when I flip them over. So that was about 2 minutes in that one side before I picked it up and turned it. I like my steaks more on the line of medium to medium rare, so mine moo. But if you like yours done to a deeper doneness than that, by all means, go ahead and do that. And I'll show you a trick on how to get it cooked even further than medium rare on a regular basis without destroying the steak. Smoke's rolling off of here. Now let me show you a quick trick on how to tell when your meat's done. So have you ever seen people that go up and they go like this and they touch their meat and they can tell you what temperature the meat is just by touching the meat? Do you want to be able to do that? It's super simple. This, with your hand wide open, this meaty part of your thumb here, touch that. All right? That's raw. All right? That's rare when you bring the first finger to the thumb. That's medium rare. Okay? That is medium. That is medium well. Each time you move one of those fingers, it tightens up this muscle in here, and you can actually get a feel for what the meat should be like. And I might have done that wrong. This might actually be rare, medium, medium well. But you'll, after practicing for a while on the grill, you'll actually get used to that. So, I'm getting hungry. I don't know about you guys. The mushrooms are getting happy. So do we have grill marks or not? What do you think? We got some. We didn't get as many as I wanted, but we have some. This roll, this curl right here, if it bothers you, and it generally doesn't bother me, but I really want a nice looking steak on here when we're done. There we go. You could just cut loose that pressure at the end there. And again, do you see what I did too? When I picked up the steak and flipped it over, I moved it back over to the hot side of the grill. These were boneless ribeyes, like I said, and now I see that there is one little bone right there. So I got a steal of a deal on these things. Potatoes are still cooking along just great. All I'm doing here is just turning them so they face the heat, so it changes the direction of, I mean, it's hot all the way around, but the actual force of heat will be on this side now. Our mushrooms, I'm going to take those and knock those down to one layer. And they have really reduced nicely. Oh, those are delicious. I hope this meal turns out good, because after all I'm going through here, it looks delicious, and I want you guys to actually see a decent meal when it's done. steak deserves a real plate, not a paper plate. So I said that when our steak is ready, we're going to take that off. And we have to let it rest. So I just grab a piece of aluminum foil. And I just throw it over the meat to cover it. And the entire purpose of resting a piece of meat when you're done with it, when you're done cooking it, boils down to allowing the juices that you saw on the top of the steak and everything. As the steak cooks, the moisture goes from the inside out. So wrapping the top with foil and letting it rest on the counter allows that moisture to go back into your steak. These are almost done. Like a little char on my taters. So we are going to let this finish up. I'm going to have to clean the heck out of that cast iron skillet when I'm done. We're going to have to let these finish cooking up. By the time they're done, the steak will be rested. We'll serve everything else, and I'll show you what we got for a complete meal. We have here. There's our potatoes. Really need to get our steak over here. And then potatoes, let's do maybe half of them. I've tried alternate different ways of stopping these potatoes from sticking, all the way from spraying the foil to coating the bottom with olive oil before I cook them, and nothing has helped. And on top of that, we have some fresh corn on the cob, nice and steamy. Butter across the top. That foil's done. Knife and a fork. We're missing something, aren't we? Yes, we are. There you have it. I got some mushrooms left over. I've got some potatoes left over. Those would be great for leftovers, or those would be great for an omelet, or I might actually eat them later on myself tonight. I'm going to dig into this in just a second so you can actually see me eat it. But first, if I don't take a picture of it now, I won't have a picture of it to post before I actually cut into it. All right. Temperature-wise, I'm probably going to be at medium. Probably won't be at medium rare. This was a thinner steak than I thought. And it was more about the process than it was about hitting all the targets to begin with. And you were concerned, if you were concerned in the beginning about all the salt that I put on there, I ended up with some pink left in there. Nice. About all the salt that I coated the steak with. Understand it's a decent sized piece of meat, so it can take the salt without a whole lot of saltiness. I'm not going to do anything on this meat. I'm not putting any seasonings on it whatsoever after that. So that is the only seasoning that it gets. And it's not overpowering at all. the thing just melts in your mouth. It's just ridiculous how that pre-salting and resting will just tenderize even the worst cut of ribeye. The other thing is, you saw me using these. I don't use a fork to turn anything. They make a fork to turn ribs. That's a whole different thing. But I'm not going to puncture the seal I have on the outside of the meat once it starts to cook, because every time you do, you just let juices out. So use tongs. If you don't have any, buy yourself a set. These mushrooms are just exquisite. If you're not a mushroom fan, you probably won't like them, but man, they're delicious. Potatoes are nice and tender. Like I said, I like a little caramelization. I get that on the bottom of the package of foil over there. So good. Corn. We'll give that a taste, because this is the first corn on the cob I've had this year. 50 cents an ear at my local store. And then the butter and the pepper that was down on the bottom, I poured that back across the top again. Oh my God, this is delicious. Have my towel, grab my beer. Thanks for watching. I'm Sean in Alaska. I'm gonna eat dinner. Have a great day.